Baker Mayfield is now in the exact same spot, at least in the trajectory of his career, that Jared Goff and Carson Wentz were. Each of them, after their third seasons, got huge contract extensions. And we all know that Goff has subsequently been traded to the Lions, and Wentz got benched and is now on the Indianapolis Colts. And so the question is, if you're the Cleveland Browns, is this a good time to extend the quarterback long term? Mike Tannenbaum is my general manager. I come back to you. If you're the man making that decision, are you giving the big deal to Baker Mayfield right now?
I am not, for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's under contract for this year for roughly around $10 million. You exercise the option, and again, the cap is going down for next year, so call that around $22 million, and then you can franchise him the year after. Greeny, it's just what we had talked about a couple years ago with Zeke Elliott, because he was a first-round pick. You have that extra year, so it's roughly about $69 million over 3 years. And Baker Mayfield has a skill set that is replaceable. When you think about guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those are much harder players to replace. So pay as you go. You don't have to take the risk of the guaranteed money like they did with Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. And if you're Cleveland, if he ever graduates down the road, you could replace the skill set a lot easier than Buffalo ever could with Josh Allen.
All right, I may want to push back on that, but first let me go to Tim and see if he agrees. What do you think, Tim Hasselbeck?
Yeah, I think I generally agree with Mike's premise of having patience with the situation. The thing I would argue against is this. Under Kevin Stefanski's leadership, Baker Mayfield is going to improve. He hasn't been a 4,000-yard passer yet in his career because the situation in Cleveland had been a disaster. Go look at what Kirk Cousins did in Minnesota with Kevin Stefanski there. He's over 4,000 yards. He's somewhere between 26 and 30 touchdowns and 10 or fewer interceptions. He's completing about 70% of his passes. That's what Baker Mayfield can do. So Baker's numbers, like they were this past year, were up from his previous 2 years. They will be up again. He's only going to improve, and then at that point, Baker then becomes more expensive. So I actually think you can argue that you sign Baker now before he's put up numbers that are similar to other guys that are getting these big contracts. Maybe get Baker under a good deal because you feel like you can build around him because of your leadership in the organization.
I understand that completely, but on some level, I feel like you're making Mike's point for him, which is that it's the coach who's really the reason that he's doing that, and if so, then maybe a lot of other players you could put in that same situation and do it.
But Greeny, they would have to be available, and so you're taking the risk that they're available. Maybe the Ryan Tannehill player that you want to release him or replace him with when that time comes because you've delayed it on him, he might not be there, and so that's the risk that you're taking. I'm not disagreeing with Mike that it's a replaceable skill set in comparison to Lamar or Josh Allen, but I would also argue that his skill set as compared to somebody as, say, Kirk Cousins, is in fact better. So look, I think that you're hoping that somebody is available to replace him with, and I don't think that that's absolutely a given.
And so Mike T, quickly, just to come back. Go ahead, Mike, go.
Yeah, I made the same mistake with Mark Sanchez. We started off 4 road playoff wins. We gave him a massive extension. It didn't work out. And the inverse of what Tim's saying
We know, Mike.
What about
we know.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thought we were better teammates than that, huh?
Yeah,
but
so,
the other issue is
it was 3
Carson
years,
Wentz.
$40 million, Mike. There's nothing wrong with that now.
Yeah, Tannebaum was the GM of the Jets, and Kimberly was a beat reporter covering the team for Newsday, and I was just sitting here being miserable about the entire thing, to be honest with you. Kimberly, let me finish it up with you on this, if we could, quickly, because anytime we start going back to the Jets thing, I have to move on. Kimberly, the question is, when should we expect, if there are going to be these conversations with Baker Mayfield and the Browns this offseason, when would they take place?
Yeah, I've asked around, Greeny. Look, around now, combine time is when you would sit down and talk about, both sides would sit down and discuss the timeline. When are we going to come back to the table and really sit down and go over numbers? But the talks don't really heat up until May, the summer. So as far as when we'd actually get deals done, it's a little later. But teams already know heading into free agency and the draft, if this is a guy we want to extend, and they can allocate and set aside, okay, this much money we think will go to that QB.
Yeah, look, they have, because he was a first-round pick, unlike Dak Prescott, for example, who was not. They have another year. They have a 5th year they can play with, plus the franchise tag. It'll be fascinating to see what they do.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.